Welcome to the Mortuary Masterclass, brought to you by the Champion Company, where preservation meets purpose, and every step is part of your journey to safer solutions. In this episode, we're talking about a moment in history that permanently shaped the prep room, AIDS sometimes called HIV, and what that era taught embalmers about infection control, occupational safety, and professional consistency. Take a slow breath with me. If you've been in this profession long enough, remember when the conversation changed. Gloves doubled. Eye protection became non-negotiable. Splash control became a discipline instead of a suggestion. In the early 1980s, AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, emerged as a global health crisis. By the mid-1980s, HIV was identified as the virus responsible. Early data estimated millions infected worldwide and hundreds of thousands in the United States. At that time, uncertainty drove the conversation. Today, science drives it. We now know HIV is a bloodborne virus transmitted through specific routes, primarily sexual contact, sharing of contaminated needles, transfusion with infected blood, or from mother to child during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding. It is not transmitted through casual contact. It is not transmitted through intact skin, and it does not survive long outside the body. Modern CDC data show that occupational transmission of HIV in healthcare settings is extremely rare. Fewer than 60 confirmed occupational transmissions have been documented in the United States over decades of tracking, and only one confirmed case has occurred since the late 1990s. That's not luck. That's the result of standard precautions done consistently. Now let's understand the virus itself, clearly and simply. HIV is a retrovirus. That means it uses RNA as genetic material and carries an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. Once inside a host cell, it converts its RNA into DNA and integrates into the cell's genetic structure. Think of it as inserting itself into the cell's instruction manual. The virus targets CD4 T helper lymphocytes, the cells that coordinate immune response. Under normal circumstances, when a pathogen enters the body, macrophages engulf it and present fragments to CD4 cells. Those CD4 cells signal B cells to produce antibodies. Plasma cells release antibodies. Memory cells store the blueprint for future defense. It's a coordinated immune cascade. HIV interrupts that cascade by binding to and gradually destroying CD4 cells. Over time, without treatment, immune defense weakens. Opportunistic infections take hold. But here is the milestone worth noting. With modern antiretroviral therapy, individuals living with HIV can achieve undetectable viral loads. When viral load is undetectable, it is not sexually transmissible. Life expectancy today, with treatment, approaches normal. That's a profound shift from the early epidemic years. Now, let's bring this back to the prep room. HIV is considered fragile in the environment. It is inactivated by common disinfectants. It does not persist long in dried blood, and embalming solutions, particularly formaldehyde-based formulations, are highly effective at inactivating bloodborne pathogens. However, the lesson that reshaped embalming was never about one virus. It was about this realization. You cannot identify infectious risk by appearance. You cannot rely on diagnosis disclosure, and asymptomatic individuals can carry bloodborne pathogens. That's what gave rise to what we now call standard precautions. Standard precautions mean treating all human remains and body fluids as potentially infectious. Every case, every time. Not because every case is high risk, but because consistency eliminates guesswork. That includes gloves, eye protection, masks or respirators when appropriate, fluid-resistant gowns or aprons, and disciplined sharps handling. Let's pause right there. Because sharps are where risk concentrates. Percutaneous injuries. Needle sticks, scalpel lacerations represent the highest transmission risk for bloodborne pathogens in any medical or mortuary setting. That's not specific to HIV. It applies to hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and others. And it's important to say this clearly. Hepatitis B is more environmentally stable than HIV. It can survive longer in dried blood. That's one reason OSHA's bloodborne pathogen standard isn't HIV specific. It covers all bloodborne pathogens. So when you glove up, control aspiration spray, properly dispose of sharps, and disinfect surfaces with approved disinfectants, such as Cavicide spray or Metricide 28, you're not just protecting against HIV, you're protecting the entire category. In the early years of the epidemic, there was confusion about aerosol risk and environmental persistence. Current evidence does not support airborne transmission of HIV in embalming settings. Transmission requires direct exposure of infected blood or certain body fluids to broken skin, mucous membranes, or a sharps injury. That distinction matters because it allows precaution to be grounded in science, not fear. And that grounding is part of professional maturity. Formaldehyde and glutaraldehyde have long served as the bedrock of preservation and disinfection in funeral service. It helped establish reliable pathogen inactivation standards during a time of uncertainty. It built confidence. But as the profession continues forward, the conversation expands. Now we consider not only pathogen control, but occupational exposure limits, ventilation systems, air exchange rates, and chemical concentrations measured in parts per million. Infection control was one milestone. Exposure reduction is another. Engineering controls are another. Each one is part of the roadmap towards safer solutions. And none of it replaces professionalism. It reinforces it. Because the prep room is a controlled biological environment. You are working with blood, tissues, aerosols, and instruments, all at a microscopic scale. Measured in microns, measured in parts per million, measured in habits. Here's the takeaway. With proper standard precautions, the occupational risk of HIV transmission during embalming is extremely low. But low risk does not mean low discipline. Consistency is the culture. No shortcuts when you're tired. No skipping eye protection because the case looks routine. No recapping needles. No assuming it's probably fine. Professionalism means the same level of care every time. The AIDS era reshaped funeral service culture. It moved infection control from selective to universal. It strengthened habit systems. It clarified boundaries between assumption and evidence. And today, decades later, those habits still protect you. This profession has always adapted. From infectious disease milestones, to evolving safety standards, to smarter chemistry, to improved ventilation, every step forward builds on the last. And that's the journey. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Mortuary Masterclass, championing the prep room with purpose, because embalmers matter, and every step forward is part of your journey to safer solutions. That's the champion difference.